And I'm actually still very fun. In fact, I'm even more fun now that I don't consume substance. Exactly 3 years ago today, on August 25th, 2022, I quit consuming alcohol for good, forever. And honestly, after abusing alcohol for a very long time, up until the day before my decision, actually, to finally leave it behind for the last time. Aloha, I'm Jules, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm going to share some of my story about my journey to discard alcohol from my life and the ways that I abused the substance and why, and how I finally came to the conclusion that it did not serve me outside of the painful life lessons that it brought to me, yet it will never serve me again. I tried to relinquish my relationship with alcohol multiple times up to the point when I finally did, but those times didn't stick with me. And I feel the reason for that is a compound of me not yet being strong enough, or maybe not feeling strong enough within my own being to face my pain, my loneliness, my grief, my losses, which in turn revealed that I had more lessons to learn through my experiences with this toxic substance. And I learned them very well. I'm grateful for that because I have a story to tell, and I trust that my story will be received by those who long for this kind of healing in themselves. I've personally never identified as an alcoholic, yet I've debated that stance within myself quite a bit. Just because I did consume alcohol every single day, most would consider this the act of an alcoholic. If you identify as an alcoholic, I trust this message will serve you, so please keep watching. I concluded that I myself was not an alcoholic because of how it felt for me to finally quit on my final attempt. There were no withdrawals for me, as I felt truly at peace and I felt free in my decision. But my abuse of alcohol came from a need to cope with excruciating grief I've experienced in my life. And also, to be fully transparent, I used it to face what felt like an absolute burden for me to even exist here on earth at all as a highly sensitive human being. I used alcohol as a crutch, like I know so many others do as well. I used it as a coping mechanism to dull my feelings and my emotions that I didn't want to face or feel or even try to heal because they hurt me so badly, and at times I didn't even want to exist here at all. Alcohol was a numbing cream for my soul, and it did exactly that, numbing my mind and my soul as it deeply broke my heart and slowly ate away at my spirit and the light that lives within me. A light that lives within all of us, actually. Consuming alcohol really is consumption. It will consume our light and our life force energy. I see that so clearly now, and I feel that in retrospect. And I got to a point where I was very aware that what I was doing was wrong for me, that it was harming me, and I needed to stop. I got to a point where the wine, the poison I picked, was no longer enjoyable to me, and it wasn't even a crutch anymore. It was just a habit that I repeated like a program. I went from hard liquor to eventually, in my final years of alcohol abuse, to just consuming wine. Pinot Grigio and Cabernet. That felt right to me, as right as consuming a full bottle of wine daily could possibly feel to a human being deeply experiencing the suffering parts of life's roller coaster ride. I was in a cycle of self-abuse. I would wake up daily and have to repeat the process in order to continue to experience a fake high and bursts of dopamine from the red wine I drink to forget my sorrows and feel lighter in the moment of a drunken buzz. And I told myself that Jesus drank wine, so in that way I gaslight myself into feeling fine about it. But it wasn't fine, and neither was I, unless this version of fine means fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional, and using substance to deal with the side effects of the various traumas that break our hearts and torment our souls here on earth is fine, then sure, I was fine. I'd say that the loss of loved ones is the most excruciating pain I've ever felt here, followed by entanglements with narcissists, and also my utter feelings of loneliness, being misunderstood as a highly sensitive person who sees, feels, and experiences this life very differently than those around me. I drink to dull my high sensitivity to the results of my personal life experiences. I was also a social drinker. I drink with friends who I barely speak to anymore because when you take this path, God prunes your life. Losing social connections with friends is a price worth paying for what I feel now. Clarity, stability, enlightenment, and a stronger intuition. And I'm actually still very fun. In fact, I'm even more fun now that I don't consume substance. I'm completely in control of my own actions, my mind, my thoughts. I never risk saying something or doing something under the influence and having regrets over that later on when I sober up. That alone is a gift of quitting alcohol, as I did allow my tongue to sharpen at times when I was under that influence, and I did some harm to some relationships I'm not proud of. I am, however, blessed to have never made mistakes that I truly do regret and wish to take back. God protected me from that part of this reality that I lived through. I feel more vibrant and alive, more full of life and light. That's another gift that will come with making the choice to live clean and free from alcohol or substance abuse. The benefits of quitting alcohol far outweigh the consequences of its consumption, and I promise you that. If you're sober curious, give it a fair chance to see the life-changing results. There is no way to regret that path. Just try it. I always knew my breakup with alcohol was inevitable. It just took me a few tries to get it right and to feel secure in that stance and in my new life. I decided to make that change on my birthday. I wanted to enter a brand new year of my life with a genuine fresh start. I wanted to be clean and healthy, and I wanted to get right mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. I wanted to heal for real. So I made the very conscious decision to set myself free from the chains of my own choice to consume alcohol that had wrapped themselves around me, and only I held that key. I very strongly acknowledge that the consumption of alcohol has the ability to severely disrupt our spiritual connection with God, with the higher power, the Creator, and it opens doors to become spiritually oppressed or even possessed. It doesn't necessarily always do this, but even that chance being anywhere near the table of possibilities, I'm out. I found myself turning to God a lot during these last few years. God was just waiting for me to get to this place, to make this choice. I realize there are some things that we ask God to take away from us, and there are some things that we must give up on our own, habits we must relinquish ourselves through our divine gift of free will. The path to letting go of substance abuse, or absolutely any addiction at all for that matter, and getting onto a path of healing is likely one that will begin with a personal choice to sacrifice that crutch, that habit, or that addiction in order to save yourself. God cannot take it away from you if you are not sincerely willing to give it up yourself to begin with. At least that's what I acknowledge as true. I drank a bottle of red wine the night before my birthday as a last dance with a demon I got to know all too well, and I woke up with a terrible hangover the next day, which was incredibly rare for me at that point. So it was a clear sign that I was making the right move for my life. And within me, I knew that this was it. Every other time I tried and failed felt different. And the times I became sober and then went back to drinking again after even a couple years at a time, the catalysts were always some form of grief and loss that I felt I couldn't face, so I numbed myself again. This time I've still been faced with grief, loss, pain, and loneliness, but I've chosen to do the actual work it takes to face my own struggles rather than repress them and numb them with a substance. And it isn't easy by any means, not at all. I've had more than a few moments during these past 3 years where I find myself with the thought of, this is when I'd reach for a bottle. This is when I want to drink. But I no longer feel tempted. I acknowledge that I feel the ways I have felt when I'd medicate with alcohol. And I have to make the conscious choice to remind myself how beautiful my life is now, no matter what struggle I'm experiencing in that moment. It's not worth it to go back to that path. Everything is temporary. I tell myself this because it's so true and valid to the healing journey, to remind oneself that everything here in this world, in this lifetime itself is temporary. So use that to let yourself acknowledge the pain and the grief, the loss, the loneliness, whatever you feel coming up for you, and to move through it instead of numbing it or burying it or sweeping it under a rug. It is temporary and it will pass. You have to feel to heal. There is no other way. Be patient with yourself and the process. All good things take time that is worth spending to truly better your life. Also use that mantra to find gratitude for the best parts of life, to cherish and savor those moments when you're in them, as nothing lasts forever on earth. I don't think it gets any more bittersweet than that. Awakening from the haze of alcohol will have one seeing this world in a very different way, in a new light. I now live amongst a humanity who, in a very large part, still uses this toxin, this poison, as a celebratory tool. And once upon a time, I was no different in that capacity. Alcohol is widely used to cheers and toast milestones and magic moments here on Earth. It is served at birthday parties, at wedding receptions, graduation celebrations, or just a weekend because you're off work and it's fun to feel free from that for a couple of days. Being on what feels like a more pure and sacred, spiritual and holistically health-centered path, I have found myself perplexed by this matrix programming lifestyle to use something so harmful to us as a means to celebrate the good and the joys in this life. It doesn't actually make sense to me anymore. Like the old, once you see it, you cannot unsee it sentiment. That is one of the side effects of my personal release from alcohol. I could honestly keep going. I really could. And in the spirit of there being a lot more to say about this topic and more to share about my personal story, I will eventually make a follow-up video to this one. I think it's important and necessary to share more, to dive deeper, and maybe even go into more details. You know, the dirt, the ugly parts. So I welcome you to the comment section to share anything at all about your own relationship with substances, alcohol, drugs, whatever it may be, any kind of addictions whatsoever, because there's a long list to choose from. And if you're sober curious, please join the conversation. We'd love to have you here and you're very welcome. If you're alcohol free, what has your journey been like? What does your life look like now? How have things changed for you? Please share because your story is important and it could help someone else. Like I said, I have so much more to share about my own journey with alcohol and even drugs, actually. But that is quite a long story for a video of its very own. So this really needs to be more parts than just this one. Please stay tuned because there's a lot more to come. And for now, I want to leave you with this. If you're struggling with an entanglement with alcohol, any other substance abuse, or addiction issues to anything at all, you are not alone. Life is hard at times, and sometimes we just do what we can do to get by day to day. There is hope, there's light at the end of every tunnel, and sometimes rock bottom is the best place to go, because the only other option after we hit that all-time low is up. God loves you, and I believe in you. Thank you so much for being here for this very special video today. I'm truly grateful that you tuned in. Until next time, bye.